Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on, and talk about some books. It is the final week of Realmathon, and I won't lie, I am super excited for this to be here because it has been a weird month of like random slumps every now and then, and for some reason I just haven't been able to get super into this by the end of the month as much as I wanted to. But we are going to leave all that in the past and we are going to have an amazing last week of Realmathon. We're going to get so much reading done, and we are going to start it with Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas, which I started last night. I'm like 10-15 pages in. Yeah, literally 15 pages in. We are in Wendland now, and Selena has just met the Fae male, as she keeps calling him, and I'm sorry, but does anyone else find it really creepy when characters refer to men as male, as if they're some sort of like other species? It bugs me. It rubs me out the wrong way. It gives me the heebie-jeebies when they say that. As for my plans this week, I want to finish Heir of Fire, and I want to start and please hopefully finish A Court of Thorns and Roses, because it's one of those super short books that I can just smash out and I know I can read it in one sitting because I've done it in the past. I was also looking back at my Snakes and Ladder TBR, which I will link up above and down below, which is the last time I did my TBR game, and I realized that 99% of the books on that TBR I actually haven't finished. So next month's Snakes and Ladder TBR is going to be just a ton of punishment prompts. It's going to be the shortest video ever. It'll probably be like one roll. I might like make it a longer TBR just so I can get a few more rolls in there. And then I was looking back at my Realmathon TBR as well, which of course I'll link up above and down below as well, and I've completely deviated from that as well. There are so many books on there that I haven't started, haven't finished, nothing, because I was doing this like Throne of Glass, Court of Thorns and Roses, Sarah J Maas reread. But anyway, it is a work day today, so I need to start work in 10 minutes, looking at my little clock down below. So I will let you know my thoughts after my lunch break when I've read like another 30 pages, because I never tend to read much on my lunch break. I'll see you in a bit. You guys are getting a really lovely shot of my messy bedroom and Ben's incredibly messy wardrobe back there, so sorry about that, but I can't be stuffed to set up my full filming setup right now, so yeah. I think I last updated you guys yesterday morning on Monday. It is now Tuesday afternoon. I've just finished work and I have read 162 pages of Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas, which is the third book in the Throne of Glass series, but technically fourth if you account the Assassin's Blade. I am enjoying this more than I've enjoyed the previous books in the Throne of Glass series, and I think a lot of that is because Selena is in this a lot less, and there's a lot of other characters that sort of balance her out and give her shit and make her realize she's not this amazing person with a godlike complex that she seems to believe that she is. I've met Prince Rowan now, who is one of my favorite characters, and he's obviously taken on that role of a trainer for her, and don't get me wrong, I'm not liking him at the moment, but he's one of my favorite characters because I know what he becomes. But at the moment, yeah, I definitely don't like him. I think he's a dick. We've also met Sorsha, which is great. Finally, Dorian has his own love interests outside of Selena, and that's helping him to get over Selena and become his own person rather than this guy that's just obsessed with this woman. And then we've also met Adian, who is Selena's cousin, I think, who essentially thought she'd been dead this entire time and finds out through Kale that she was actually alive, and he's kind of been leading this rebel movement in her place, trying to do his bit to help his people. And finally we have met Manon, who when I stopped reading Throne of Glass because I kind of just wasn't in the mood to read any more of it, she was probably my favorite character when I left off. And I mean, one of her intro scenes, I couldn't help but laugh because she's describing this beautiful scenery that she's in, and then all of a sudden she switches and she's like, and how I'd love to kill these people while I'm here, or something stupid like that. I found the section, I'll read it to you. Manon Blackbeak stood on a cliff beside the snow-swollen river, eyes closed as the damp wind bit her face. There were few sounds she enjoyed more than the groans of dying men, but the wind was one of them. It's like such a beautiful scene, and then she's like, dying men. Love that for her. And then I'm loving that we've finally gone from the book being set in one location, being the palace, and as much as I love the sort of gothic, dark, mysterious nature of that, it's nice to sort of expand and see the world expanding now, learn about different creatures, learn about different magic types and about the witches. I'm loving how much this is expanding now. I'm loving getting to meet different characters and spend time with them and just watch this whole story gets so much bigger than it was where we left off in the Assassin's Blade. I'm going to really try and get this book finished by Thursday night so I can fit in one more book before the end of Realmathon. I don't want this to be another vlog where I only read one book because I feel like that's such a boring vlog. But for tonight, I am going to, get back into reading, eat my dinner, and just curl up on the couch and be super comfy. So I will see you guys when I have another update. It is a Wednesday morning and I have read another 80 pages or so of Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. I read this last night before I went to bed, and I have a couple of extra thoughts before I start work for the day. Where I picked up in the book basically started with the scene where all of the witches are choosing their wyverns, and this scene breaks my heart every time. I'm just not one of those people that can deal with animals getting injured or hurt or abused in any kind of way, so this whole scene always makes me really uncomfortable. But then the payoff at the end, I will say, is absolutely incredible. It's this beautiful, almost found family kind of moment where Manon realizes that she doesn't need to just go for brutality. She can go for the wyvern that no one would expect her to go for, but at the end of the day is the best one for her because it's got that fighting spirit, that warrior's heart, as she says. And Manon is just one of the most interesting characters for me because while she hides all of it under a lot of bluster and a lot of bullshit, she is loyal to a fault. And she's not nearly as unfeeling either as she seems to make everyone, believe that she is. So that is the long and short reason for why Manon is literally my favorite character in this entire series. She's so conflicting and so interesting. Separately to that, of course, we've got more from Rowan and Selena. Aedion and Kale and Dorian have kind of taken a backseat in the last 80 or so pages, but Rowan and Selena have definitely come forward, and you're beginning to see a bit of respect blossom between them rather than just like the mutual hatred they've been sharing for a really long time. I'm really appreciating that Rowan is humbling Selena in this story, and yeah, he's kind of treating her like shit, and I can forgive it because I know that at the end of the day, him putting her through her paces is turning her into a better person, someone who doesn't think she's the best thing since sliced bread. He's making her mature and grow up and analyze her behavior and her past a little bit more and be less of a sort of immature selfishness that has kind of been a massive factor of her personality, and narcissism that has been a massive factor of her personality, I think, in past books. So yeah, I'm at page 213. I'm going to get started with work, read on my lunch break as I always do, and I will give you an update later on today on how I'm going, and hopefully we can get this finished today because I think 200 pages this afternoon is not really that unachievable. Dorian and Saoirse are just so cute. I honestly love that relationship. Those two are so good for each other. They are literally perfect, and I love the moment that just happened. It was adorable. And screw it, I'm gonna use this as a chance for another little update because I'm another like 50 pages or so, which is not when I usually do an update, but I've written a lot down and I've got a lot to say. So my next bit of reading started with a scene with Aedion, and he was talking about Aelin and their relationship and how he feels this fierce protectiveness for her and this bond with her, and it almost felt bond to like a romantic sense, but they're cousins, so I wasn't quite sure if he had like romantic feelings for her or if he just had this intense love and this intense desire to protect her because they were family, because those two were literally everything for each other when they were kids, and they were in each other's entire world. Aedion and Kale also have this really interesting bond forming as well, because whilst they both kind of still hate each other, and that's very clear, they do not like each other, there's definitely a mutual respect and a mutual trust there, because they're both sort of helping each other put all the pieces together about how magic disappeared and even potentially how to get it back later on down the line. And their storyline is definitely used as a mechanism to tell the history of magic in Ardalan and the rest of the continent, and I think that's a really fluid way to do it rather than the info dumping that we get in some of the Crescent City books. There's also like a murder mystery subplot, I think, in every single one of these books, which I absolutely love. It's a really fun subplot to follow each time, and I think it adds another element to the story to really keep you coming back and wanting answers and finding out more. And it's an element of the story where you actually will get answers by the end of the book, whereas some of those larger elements obviously you don't, because it's all part of that big, broader world and history of magic and everything like that. Anyway, that is my update. I'm gonna get back to my lunch break and keep reading and finally eat something. I'm probably gonna go back to Baguette Express, so if you watched my last vlog, which I will link up above and down below, you know that is the best sandwich place in London, in my opinion. Beats Subway every time. I will die on that hill if I have to. I love it, love it, love it. So I'm gonna go and get myself a sandwich for lunch from Baguette Express and read. Okay, so I have got 70 pages left of Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. The last 50 pages or so have been intense as the battle with the Volk has taken place in the castle where the whole training thing was going on with Rowan. I will say that they could have made a little bit more of the whole Baz betraying them thing, because you're kind of told this guy that's really important to them betrays them, but then you've only really met him once and he's only important to one of like the supporting characters, so it doesn't quite feel like a betrayal. But anyway, that's like a tiny thing. I know it's super cheesy to say this, but in Selena's darkest moment, when she has all of her friends and her family and everyone come to her and say, get up, get up, get up, it gave me goosebumps. That sort of thing gets me every time, and it's super cheesy, super dorky, but it works. But on the opposite side of things, I remember when that uprising in Calacola happened after Nehemiah's death, I just had that feeling of like hope like blossoming in my chest, and that was completely ruined in this book. It honestly just kills me that it's all gone now. Like that beacon of hope and those people who were willing to stand up will never get the chance to fight and see what becomes of the kingdom that they were trying to fight so hard for. So that killed me. So I said before that I wasn't sure if there was a romantic element in the relationship between Adian and Aelin, because he obviously has this fierce protectiveness for her and this very intense love. But I think it's definitely been confirmed that there is an element of romance in there, at least on Adian's side, because he's just saying that he could be a really powerful match for her when it comes to ruling their kingdom one day, that even though he's a cousin, he's really powerful and he'd be the perfect person. And he definitely has a lot more feeling than just admiration for her, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out going forward when hopefully they eventually, you know, meet up and see each other again, because I think Aiden made it pretty damn clear that she was not interested. The internal conflict that's happening inside Chaol is also another incredibly fascinating element of this book in particular, because on one hand he's definitely trying to do the right thing and he's trying to help the people and he's trying to remain loyal to this love that he still has for Selena and the loyalty that he still has for her, and you know, by extension he wants to help her people and do what's right and defeat the king that is clearly like enslaving thousands and thousands of people. But on the other side, he still wants there to be a kingdom left for Dorian, his friend, to rule. So he doesn't want to completely destroy this family and destroy this monarchy like the rebel movement wants to do, but he also doesn't want to help the monarchy in any kind of way because he thinks what they're doing is wrong. And the very last thing that I want to say is that I love the little Easter eggs that I've been getting in this book as a result of reading The Assassin's Blade, because obviously the first time I read the series, I didn't read that series of novellas, so little links to like the man who went to the spiders, who made the spider silk, that was mentioned in this book, and I obviously wouldn't have been able to link that back to The Assassin's Blade before, but now I can. So anyway, we've got another 70 pages to go, and then that will be the end of this book, which means that I will at least start a second book in this vlog, which I am super happy about, because I really wanted this vlog to be more than just one book. So I'm going to read the last 70 pages now. Hopefully I can get that finished within an hour, and then I'll give you my final thoughts for this book and let you know what I'm going to be reading next. What? Sorsha? Spy? That was enough of a shock as it was, but then that moment at the very end there and what happened to Sorsha, oh, I'm like borderline in tears, because I was so happy for Dorian to finally find someone that was good for him, and he could finally move on from Selena and he could just be happy for once, because he's one of my favorite characters. And what's I gonna do now? I have finished Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. It took me all of 3 days to read it, so I am really quite proud of myself, because this is a fairly beefy book. This might end up getting a few points from Realmathon on being a chunky book, because I consider chunky anything over 500 pages, and this was like 532 or something like that. I ended up giving the book 4 stars, which I think is more than I gave it the first time I read it. I think I only gave it like 2 or 3 the first time I read it, just because I wasn't able to connect to the characters. The storyline confused me the first time, but I was able to get more of a grip on it this time, probably because I'd paid more attention in earlier books this time, and also because second time reading it, you always understand more. I think this book was the character building book to make you fall in love with all the characters. Any character that was kind of hard or stony in previous books was really given love and heart and feeling this time around. So you did get to see that softer side to Selena and Kale. And you even got to see characters who started this book as quite, you know, hard and mean become quite soft and lovely, such as Ronan and Adian and Manon as well. I loved how much the world expanded in this story and how many different POVs and different worlds and cities and political systems and all that sort of stuff that we got to explore. And I think the training montage was like perfectly placed as well between Rowan and Selena, and also between Dorian and Saoirse in a way as well, as they were trying to figure out each other's powers. I will say that the Fae history and the magic system and some of the politics still continue to confuse me, but I think I've just got to deal with it at this point because they've always confused me. They've been explained a million times. I'm just not absorbing it, so I'm just gonna have to sort of be confused. The stories that really stand out for me in this one were Dorian's story, in that it made me so happy but so heartbroken at the end. Manon's story, because I think she had the biggest character growth, character arc in the whole thing, given how she started as quite a brutal like murderer assassin person, and then she sort of changed to someone who actually cared about leading her people. So as I said, I gave Heir of Fire 4 stars, and as for what I'm reading next, we are going to be jumping into another Sarah J Maas series, which is the next book in publication order, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, obviously. We've obviously been in Aurelia with Selena for most of this month, frankly, but now we are moving to Prithian and we are hanging out with Feyre and with Tamlin, who is sort of the two focal characters in this first book. I'm not going to give detail about what this one is about. I will include a link to its Goodreads profile down below because I am shit at describing this book. I never do it to a point where I'm like happy with how I've described it. So yeah, check out the link down below if you want to know what it's about, but I'm going to get started on reading this book right away because I am so keen to jump into what is my second favorite Sarah J Maas series. It is 10:23 p.m. on Friday, the 29th of April, aka right near the end of Realmathon, and I have started and finished A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas today. Well, that's kind of a lie. I had read 100 pages in the couple of days prior to this, but it was basically started and finished today. I was going to give updates throughout the book like I've done with every other book, but one, I got super busy with work and just did not have time to take lunch breaks or take any breaks to give updates. And two, I was enjoying this book so much that I just couldn't pause reading it whenever I was reading it to give an update on what I was up to and what was going on in the story. So I figured I would just smash it out, finish it, and then tell you my thoughts at the end. This is a reread for me, so my rating for this book will stay the same, and that is 4 stars, I believe. Yep, Goodreads says 4 stars, so that's where we're sitting with this book. And reading this was definitely one of those the beauty of a reread sort of moments where you kind of know what happens later on in the story, and that changes your entire perspective on what happens in this story. A Court of Thorns and Roses is very Beauty and the Beast retelling, and unfortunately that makes it very problematic in a lot of ways. It's also like they got the evil stepsisters from Cinderella and kind of made Nesta and Elaine those stepsisters. So you've got like the mean one and then the kind of aloof one. So Nesta's the mean one, Elaine's the aloof one. Neither of them really want to help out, and Feyre is doing everything for them despite the fact that she's the youngest sister, so it did kind of make me lose respect for those two. I'd forgotten that Feyre's father, upon Tamlin basically taking her away to his land of, you know, the Fae and the Spring Court and everything, her father had basically demanded that she never return because he wanted her to have an opportunity to make a better life for herself and to not feel so tethered to the family that she has, because they have been her entire life and keeping them alive has been her entire life until this point. I honestly have a lot of respect for him because of that. Then we get into the romance between Tamlin and Feyre. This was definitely very enemies to lovers at the beginning, purely based off of the fact that one, it's Beauty and the Beast, so they're gonna be enemies at the beginning because they're just two completely opposed species, and two, she'd obviously just killed one of his like best mate soldier guys, so he was obviously not going to be such a big fan of her, despite the fact that he's obviously trying to get her to fall in love with him, which I guess is a bit of a spoiler, but if you didn't already know that, then you've been hiding under a rock. In one of their very early interactions, he basically tells her to keep her head down and shut up in order to survive, and that's the only way she's going to survive. And the only thought I had was, wow, that's a great start to a relationship. Just tell her to keep her head down and shut up and just fade into the background. I found it really strange at first that Tamlin went to so much effort to get her to the Spring Court and to capture her essentially, but then when he was having his initial interactions with Feyre, he basically said, I don't care what you do, you can do whatever you want, I just wanted you here. But later on I kind of realized that he doesn't want a partner so much as he just wants someone to be there for him, and he can like unload all of his shit on them at the end of the day. They will just be there waiting for him at the end of a hard day's work, and that is not a good relationship. That is very like 1800s nuclear family sort of vibes, rather than the sort of relationship that Feyre is looking for, which is more equal standing, more of a partner, someone to help rather than just listen. But on the flip side, I'm really liking Feyre and her persistence and her strength. And then I also really liked Lucian, because he's just honest to a fault. He isn't gonna hide who he is. He isn't gonna hide the fact that he's a sassy bitch and he doesn't care what anybody thinks of him, and he's gonna say what he wants. And you know what, if he can dish it, he can take it too. And then something I noticed throughout this book is that Sarah J Maas is incredible at creating very conflicting scenery. She describes the forest and the land of the Spring Court as very beautiful and flowering and colourful, but then she also gives it this overlaying, ominous, eerie feeling that makes you feel like you're never really safe, be it because of the creatures that are there, or there's always just hidden language about the shadows and everything that gives everything that is so beautiful this just unsettling, eerie feeling. And I really respected that, because obviously it's hard to make spring scary. The way this book ended is just the perfect opening for the rest of the series, but then also a really nice conclusion to the first book, because like the bad guy is kind of defeated at the end, but then there's another sort of layer that comes in there where they've mentioned this other king of Hybern and him being a constant threat. So if you wanted to just read this book, you could, and you can be perfectly comfortable just finishing this and then not going any further. But it opens and leaves questions for those who want to continue. But anyway, I gave this 4 stars. I loved it the second time reading it, and it is the last book that I'm going to be reading as part of Realmathon, which kind of makes me sad now that it's over. It's been an interesting month. I definitely started this month with one really big success. I think I read like 5 books in the first week, which is just insane. But then the second and third week, I just went into a massive reading slump. I think it was just because I went too hard in the first week and I like peaked and then just wasn't willing to read anything else. So I only read like 1 book each in the second and third week. And then we got 2 books in the fourth week, which I am not mad about at all. That was my goal, that was my aim. I'd been trying to read these books since the second week of Realmathon, and I got them finished. So I got everything on my updated TBR, not my sort of original TBR that I created. And I got all that done, so yeah, I'm gonna say it was a successful Realmathon for me. Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy is obviously going to announce the winners soon, so fingers crossed it is Team Bale, but I'm kind of stressed because I know we weren't winning for a period of time there, because I think everybody was kind of attacking Team Bale because we were the biggest team. But one can still dream that the power of might and multiple people will push us through to that victory, and that after that sort of second week bad news, we have made a massive turnaround, and those peace talks, we got heaps done. So fingers crossed it's Bale, but I guess I will be fine with it if one of the other teams wins too. I do love a good underdog story. As always, let me know down below what you managed to get read for Realmathon this month. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read, if you love them, if you hated them, if you agree with my thoughts on any of them. I always love to chat to you guys in the comments below. As always, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when I release new content, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!